Alright guys, it's pretty early in the morning, but let's look at making some predictions. I've saved this to do with our ratios and proportions because it is actually going to be setting up a proportion just like we've been doing. We're going to use the information that's here and set up a proportion in order to predict. Okay, so we're going to use a proportion. We're going to use a proportion. To predict. Okay. Now, so using a proportion, a manufacturer cell phones checks every 5th phone off the line for defects. Out of 200 phones, 4 are defective. In a shipment of 5,000 phones, how many would you expect to be defective? So how many would you expect to be defective? It's going to be your unknown. We've got defective phones out of all the phones. So 4 phones out of 200 are defective. And we want to know how many out of 5,000 would be defective. X times 200 is 200x. 4 times 5,000 is 20,000. And when we divide both sides by 200, X is going to equal 100. So we can predict that 100 phones out of 5,000 phones would be defective. To determine if a class understood the fractions lesson, Mrs. Stefan asked random students to solve a problem. Out of the students that answered, 80% were correct. In a class of 30 students, how many understood the lesson? Now, this is going to be your percent proportion. That's your percent proportion. And if you remember what your percent proportion is, it's part over whole equals your percent over 100. Okay? So, let's look at this. This is going to be our percent. All right, so 100, 80% goes there. We're looking for the part out of 30 students. So we want to know what number of students out of 30. So 100x equals 30 times 80 is 20. Divide both sides by 100, and x equals 24. So 24 students understood the lesson. Macy surveyed every 3rd student off the bus about their favorite sport. The results are in the table below. What percent of Macy's school likes soccer as their favorite sport? Now we're still going to use, when it says what percent, we're going to use our percent proportion. Our percent proportion is our part, and this is, you learned this in 6th grade, over whole, percent over 100. What percent? What percent is going to be our unknown? So, we want to know what percent likes soccer. Soccer is going to be your part. The whole is your total amount. So we've got to add these up. 12 plus 15 plus 10 plus 8. That's 45. So this is 45. So what do we have here? We have 12 out of 45 is going to be what percent of 100? So starting here, we have 45x equals 1,200, and that's 12,000. 1,200. Divide both sides by 45. And we get 26.6766 We get 26.66 repeating. So we're going to say that is 26.7%, or we could round it to 27%. If we wanted to round that. A survey showed that 74% of our nursery's mail order customers spent more than $100 on plants. Predict how many of 125,000 mail order customers will spend less than $100 next spring. All right, so a survey showed that 74% of a nursery's mail order customers spent more than $100 on plants. So look at this. We're going to use a little math common sense right here. If 74% spent more than $100, we want to know how many spent less than $100. Let's look at the percent first. And these two numbers have to equal up to 100%. So basically, to find this percent right here, we're just going to subtract that from 100, okay? So we're going to do 100 minus 74, and we get 26% spent less. 26% spent less. Now, let's come over here to our... So if 26% spent less, predict how many of 125,000. So 125,000 would be our whole. We're trying to find the part. We're trying to find the part of that. So 100x equals 125 divided, oops. It's a big number, 3 divided by 100. So 32,500 people. So X here, I'm going to come right up here. X is going to equal 32,500 people. Out of this 125 spent less. Okay? 74% spent more. We don't want that amount. We want this amount. So if 74% spent more, 26% spent less. So we're going to use that 26% in our proportion. Okay? All right. I'm going to let you kind of finish this. I'm going to jump around a little bit. Let's look at number 8. And then I'm going to let you finish the rest of them, and I'll post you a key, because I think you should be able to kind of put the rest of this together. Survey at a college found that 3 out of every 10 students at that college wanted to earn a degree in medicine. If there are 350 students at the school, about how many want to earn a degree in medicine? Okay, so 3 out of 10, and we want to know how many out of 350. X times 10 is 10x. Divide both sides by 10. So X is going to equal 105. So 105 students out of those 350. All right. So I want you to finish this, and I will post you a key. And we're going to come back and look at the next video will be over. We're going to talk about biased and unbiased. But I wanted to go over the predictions first, because there's some predictions in here. And once we talk about biased and unbiased, you can come back to this. All right. We'll see you shortly.